Hello and welcome. You are here with Mandee Elam. I am hosting a special conversation with our friend Ellen Red. Hey, Ellen, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's been an interesting, energetic week. We're recording this on July 16th, and we just got out of Mercury retrograde, but man, we've had some crazy energies going on, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Good stuff coming in, though. I'm getting some good waves recently, like the last week and a half.
Yeah, the last week and a half has been interesting for me for sure, and a lot of my clients. But the past few days, I've felt a little more ease and more just rest coming in. A lot of my friends have just been saying they're really tired, and some waves of anxiety have been coming through, and a lot of people have been sleeping more now that the full moon moved out. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, that is a good thing.
Beautiful. So, Ellen, I wanted to talk to you about several things today. You have been a guest on Creating Heaven on Earth and the Alchemy Sisters, and we just adore you over here at Heart Over Ego Radio. And there's
Wow.
some wonderful topics that we haven't been able to jump into yet that I'd love for you to share some light on. So, before we jump into that, I was wondering if you would be willing to tell our listeners just a little bit about yourself and how they could get a hold of you if they want to work with you one on one.
Absolutely. I am a twin flame coach and an ascension guide. I've gone through the twin flame alchemical marriage. It was a 10-year process before I was able to come into union. And so now I work as an ascension guide and a twin flame guide. I have a group called Twin Flame Initiates on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. You can just look up Ellen Red, REDD. Um, and now I do work with people one on one. I also am working on a book. And as I mentioned, I specialize mostly in twin flame and ascension guidance.
Absolutely beautiful. It's certainly something we could use some support in right now collectively.
Yes.
Before we jump into the twin flames and divine union, we were going to talk a little bit about astral healing and your experience with that. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and it's hard to really control anything outside of ourselves. And you and I were chatting about that a little bit, and you brought up this beautiful experience you had with astral healing. So I was wondering if you could share a little bit about that with us.
Absolutely. I did a short video yesterday about it, so some of the listeners, if they're in my group, are probably have already heard a little bit. But basically, as I've been in my journey with my twin flame, going through what I call purification, a lot of that it really requires deep meditation and trans meditative states, and really connecting with your high soul and your spirit guides to help guide you through whatever it is that you need to do in your journey. And as I've been doing that for many, many years, I had worked through a lot of other issues, but eventually it was time for me to face the fact that I needed to quit smoking cigarettes. I was a smoker, unfortunately, and I had smoked for a long time, and so it was one of those final things that I knew I was doing and I shouldn't be doing. And eventually I had light beings, angelic beings, come to me. I was in a deep meditative state for about 2 weeks. I'm in real estate, and so sometimes I'll get a lot of sales at once and I'll have some free time. So I spent a couple of weeks really going into a meditative state to kind of line up with whatever else it is that I was going to be asked to do next in my journey, and I still didn't feel quite right. So I was in this deep state of meditation, and angelic beings came and tried to lift me out of my body. And I've had many, many out of body experiences before. And oftentimes there usually are some spirit guides that are there always assisting you, especially if you ask for them. But anyhow, they tried to lift me out of my body, and I could see that I was hooked. I had a hook in me, and I couldn't come all the way out of my body. And I could hear they were speaking to me in light language. And basically, I was understanding that I needed to quit smoking because it was holding me earthbound, and my spirit was hooked. And so I was told to quit smoking, and then I was shown this large black mass in the left side of my body, and I never felt anything bad. I mean, at the time I didn't understand. I was like, "What?"
Right.
Now that I've gone through the journey of it, I know that the drugs themselves numb you from the pain that you're in and from the damage you're doing to your body, but I didn't know that at the time. And so I quit smoking like right away, which I never thought would happen, but it did. And of course, my twin flame's etheric being was there with me also, not his physical body, but his etheric body was there with me, and I could feel him holding me and rocking me, because when I tried to quit, all of a sudden my whole chest closed up and I couldn't breathe. I was gasping for air. I was fighting for air. I flatlined 4 times. It was really, really horrendous for me. I had a very rough bout of it.
Mm.
And I hope and pray most people don't go through this much, but I went through a lot. And later I also realized that I was being used as like I was being used to help transmute the energy for people who passed over from being hooked on the cigarettes. So I wasn't just suffering for myself, I was suffering for many, many, many other souls. But it's a long story. So short part right off the cuff is that eventually I flatlined 4 times as I was trying to like get my body off of the drugs and get and heal, and my whole chest closed up and I couldn't breathe, so I was fighting for air day after day, and I would get so tired at the end of the day of having to just fight to breathe
Mm.
that I would stop breathing. And about 3 months in, well, it was, every day I could feel the spirit beings there with me, and they were talking to me in light language, and they were helping to. I could feel this tick 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 kind of a feeling all the way through my DNA. So they were helping to clean out my bloodstream, and they were upgrading my DNA and all that as I was coming off of this stuff. And I could feel them performing a surgery on my left lung where the black stuff was. And of course, I in the 3D world, I was still taking the 3D steps, and I was going to the hospitals and getting X-rays and CAT scans, and I was asking the doctors to look for this black stuff because, I trusted the spirit, and the doctors were treating me like I was a total crazy person and an idiot.
Mm.
And of course, they didn't see anything in the CAT scans or the X-rays or anything like that. And about 3 months later, I purged out a huge mass the size of a giant baseball of black stuff
Oh.
out of my lung. But it was after they were performing surgery day after day. I could feel them kind of working on me. And I had a lot of beings that were walking around in circles chanting and sending me Reiki energy. And these are non physical beings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the mask came out, and once the mask came out, it became a lot easier to breathe, and I was able to start my healing process from that.
Wow. Did you just cough it up?
I really didn't cough it, but I had when I first quit, I started getting some guidance to drink apple cider vinegar, which usually I wouldn't recommend to drink a lot of that because it's acidic, so it can tear apart your stomach lining. But I was guided to drink some of it at the time, and then I got a little annoyed with it, so I stopped. And this was when I was really going through the hard part of having to really fight hard to breathe.
Mm.
And and then I stopped taking it. And then 3 months later, I went and had a beer. And I usually don't drink, but I went and had a beer, and I got an apple cider vinegar beer. And the apple cider, I guess, in it just caused me kind of like, I wouldn't say cough, but it's kind of like a beer burp, And when
Yeah.
that happened, a whole mass of stuff came out, and I ran in the toilet and spit it out. And then
Wow.
next thing you know, more came out, and then more came out, and it was so much, and I have pictures of it. So it's like how the doctors didn't see that is beyond me, you know.
Wow. That's so fascinating. I'm so grateful you're sharing this with us. It's absolutely incredible. And I was just listening yesterday to a talk that talked about just how healing true like hops is, especially if you find it in an organic beer. And I wonder if maybe the combination of the hops and the apple cider vinegar really helped expel that. Who knows?
Yeah, it could have. I mean, it was a work in process, and it had been going on for months, and then this just for whatever reason, that apple cider vinegar beer just kind of did it for me, and it brought everything out. And but I could feel them doing the surgery on my lung for quite a while. They were working on me. I could feel them. And at the time I didn't know what it was called. I wouldn't have known it was called astral surgery or anything like that. I really hadn't heard about that.
Hmm.
But after it happened, I was in my office and I was kind of on my computer and I noticed a video pop up on YouTube with Wayne Dyer. And this was, I think, right before he passed away. I think he passed away that same year later on. But a video popped up with him. And it was him talking about having an astral surgery himself, and so that's how it was a confirmation for me. Not that I questioned the spirit. I trust the divine in all things, always. I trust the divine way more than anything human. But but it was a nice confirmation to, especially coming from Wayne Dyer, you know.
I
So
do. I just think it's so beautiful. I think he's wanting to come and hold space with us right now. Because last night I was over, I did a house blessing. My cousin bought a new house during this whole COVID thing, which was wonderful for her. And I did a really nice house blessing. Then I spent some time with my friend. And on the way home, I came up into my room and it was like completely dark. And all of a sudden, my laptop turned on and started playing a talk from Wayne Dyer. And
okay.
I'd been thinking about him this week and several things, especially how he really chose to forgive his father finally and things like that. And it
Yeah.
was so funny. So I was listening to all kinds of amazing stuff. And I remember him talking about having, he had been diagnosed with, I think it was like leukemia or something like that, but he wouldn't say it. He wouldn't call it in. And he said, that he was trying to heal it and that he did. He had an experience with John of God and then another one that I had listened to where he talked about this kind of astral healing or surgery and how incredibly, wonderful it was for him. And he didn't really believe it at first. And then like he got up and started walking after this surgery and then ended up like passing out because he didn't fully believe that his body would have to catch back up to it, but it did and it proved it to him.
Yeah, it's an incredible experience for sure. There's just no way to describe to anybody how amazing it is to know and realize that there are beings that love us, that surround us all the time that we don't see. And that, when we're doing our spiritual work I'm going to say this and I hope it doesn't come across wrong, but I think that when we're really doing our spiritual work and we're really working to be a contributing, soul on earth and assisting, they really will go out of their way to help us continue our work, right? So there's so much support for us here that we just don't see in the physical world. And when we open ourselves to it, it's infinite. There's no end to the love and support that we have surrounding us if we open ourselves to it. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so that was a big, it was an awesome experience. And of course my twin flame was also there. Like I said, I could feel his etheric body and I could hear him helping me move through it. And we together were being guided by these light beings on how to heal and how to breathe through it. And I was being guided to videos to listen to and learning like what my body was going through so that I wouldn't be so scared, because it was really, really terrifying.
Mm.
It was a very terrifying experience. And I mean, I have a daughter, and I mean, I didn't know if I was going to die or end up in a cancer clinic or what. It was a very terrifying experience, except that I had the support of these light beings and of my twin flame etherically. So it was a superbly, um, really mystical experience.
That's absolutely beautiful and incredible. About how long ago did you experience that?
That was about 4 years ago when it first happened. And then, of course, the light beings have worked on me quite a lot since then. And I'm not 100% healed because, I smoked for 30 years. So when you go through something like this, I really have to rebuild my lung. So
Mm.
it's been an entire journey of, and I know a lot of people that are in the journey of awakening and ascension, and a lot of them do end up going through some form of an illness. It's kind of it's par for the course. So there's
Oh
going to be
yeah.
an illness that they are going to face somewhere along the way. And so, and part of that is a journey, where you gain a lot of lessons in going through it. So I'm going through that journey of, and I'm kind of coming out the other end of it now. But it takes time. It takes about 7 years to rebuild a lung,
Right.
and um, that left lung was almost completely damaged. So, it's a journey. It's a journey of just constantly having to self-love and create new cells in there, and send love to my body and to my cells and to my lung. But I'm able to breathe quite well now, and it's just been an incredible journey, really. And of course, that was part of the purification of the twin flame journey as well. Because when we're doing harm to ourselves, which is really what smoking is doing. You're harming your own self, and I'm not trying to sound like I'm condemning anybody or anything else. This was
Right.
what I
Yeah.
learned in my lesson. So it's my story and it's my lesson, but here's what I learned. And I did come to understand, obviously, that I picked up that addiction when I was a young child. And of course, all of these addictions are stemmed from some form of trauma. And so I understood why I started it and how it was connected to my life, my family, my experiences, my traumas, and all that. And I had to heal through all of those different layers. And then, of course, just realizing that not only did I get harmed by all these other people, but then I used my addiction to self harm. And at the end of the day, that's really what smoking is. It's self harm. You're
Mm.
putting, you're taking all those poisons and putting them into your body, and so it's quite a journey to come off of it, especially as an evolved soul. So for me, as I went through this journey, I also did a lot of ancestral healing, and and collective healing for the collective in relation to the cigarette smoking,
Mm.
and how tragic it is that millions and millions of souls are dying every year from it. And so when I was healing from it, I was also transmuting some of that energy for the souls that were trapped and earthbound, and all of that stuff. So it became really a much bigger project than just me quitting.
I was going to say that was, not only to heal your beautiful and amazing body that deserves to be here and transmute wonderful things, but holding the space for the collective is so needed. And so many of us, light workers need to do that, or are called to do that, or want to do that, to be fully of service. And it's really interesting because I'm not sure exactly what's happening astrologically, but I do know there is another big call for a lot of light workers and people who choose to be here of service to release the things that have been a coping mechanism and causing numbing for them. So I think it's such divine timing that you're speaking about this today. Um, I also wanted to ask you, with the law of free will and everything, did you have to consciously ask them to come in or give them permission to work on you at that time? Is that something you'd recommend to your clients or listeners?
I always recommend that. For me, again, I started off by going into a trans meditative state for 2 weeks before I was asked to quit smoking. And in that trans meditative state, I was most certainly asking the spirit to show me what other areas within me needed to be healed and corrected. And part of that for me really came from being on the twin flame journey. The twin flame journey um, really helped to drive me to heal myself, because, and I mean in deep, deep ways, because in meeting them, on a soul level, you have this absolute fantastic memory of life on Lemuria and life before Earth, and your love together in all dimensions on all timelines. And it's the most profound thing you can ever imagine. So it's such a fantastic feeling to connect with them. And then, of course, you get put on this, purification journey. And so it drives you because all you want is to be in union again because that feeling is home. It's the best feeling in the cosmos. And it drives you really to heal yourself. So that was part of what helped me. But I was in a trans meditative state and I was asking what else I needed to do because I wanted to continue to heal so that I could hold and embody the energy that I felt when I first had my Kundalini awakening. And it was, and so, like I said, that feeling and that twin flame union itself drives me and has driven me for 10 years to go through the clearing and peeling away of everything that is not in alignment with my soul so that he and I can come into union, which we're doing now finally in this year. So it took us almost
Wow.
10 years. Yeah.
That was going to be a follow-up question because you were saying your twin flame was holding you etherically, and I wasn't sure if you had met him in the physical or not yet before that experience.
No, we hadn't, and this is the first year that we are finally able to do that after going through all of the alchemical marriage and everything else. We were married by light beings. It's a profound journey, so it took a while. It takes a while. Some people spend lifetimes trying to get there, and some maybe decades, and some years only. And so it depends on the twin pair and what they're working through. But each set of twins has a different, we're all unique and we have unique soul experiences that we have to transmute in order to get through alchemy together. But we did, and then eventually we tied the knot in the etheric world. Light beings again assisted us with that, and now we're able to come into union this year. So
Wow. Well, that's pretty exciting. I when I went through a really intense experience about 3 years ago for that had to do with breathing also. And it was a bit of a dark night of the soul. And my throat chakra was really closed off. I wasn't fully speaking my truth or stepping into my spiritual power. I was definitely still serving the 3D as much as possible. And I
yeah.
wasn't being like really honest. And I had a vocal cord dysfunction, which has actually been misdiagnosed as like asthma since I was a kid. But I had a similar experience. I kept going to the hospital and like I couldn't breathe, and they were shooting me up with EpiPens, and like they could tell I couldn't breathe, but they didn't know about this like vocal cord dysfunction. And I lucked out
Very
and I got to work with this really incredible speech therapist that had to teach me how to like breathe again. And like it was a whole new way of looking at life because I was on such autopilot, and being
yeah.
closed off and unconscious that, man, it is amazing what happens when you really connect with your breath again.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad that you brought that up because I want to say this for the listeners because I think it might help, somebody listening
Yeah.
that it's really important to understand a couple of things. One, when I was first asked to quit smoking, I was shown that my whole throat chakra was complete concrete. So
Mm,
when you're smoking, you are blocking your throat chakra, and of course, any chakra being blocked isn't healthy, but smoking does block that chakra, and that chakra is really your connection to the divine. So it does block that chakra. And I was shown that mine was concrete. So it's taken me a lot of time also to heal through that and work through it and to clear, the stuff that happens to your physical being when you've smoked for that long. Cause it doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to heal overnight from something like that. And so as much as we can create instant manifestations and miracles, this isn't going to be one of them. It
nope.
takes a little while to reverse the damage, and of course you can reverse it, but also another thing that I wanted to mention is that those that smoke generally have some kind of grief trauma. It's connected to grief, and
Okay.
of course it affects your lungs, and your lungs are where you hold your grief.
Mm,
And so most souls who smoke generally are trying to cope with some form of unhealed grief. And so like if you can connect, try to recognize within yourself where that stemmed from, then you can start to begin that healing process. But you're really trying to nurture yourself with a cigarette instead of whatever it is that caused you grief that you need to be nurturing. So I just wanted to throw that out there because it's really, really important, and it's kind of I mean, if you think about how many people do smoke and how many of them are suffering, it should tell you the massive amount of people that are actually trapped in grief and just complete suffering. So
I'm glad you brought that up because it's true, and we're really being called to look at our lungs with the COVID, and we're being called to look at our lungs with the state of the
yeah.
planet and the grief that we're all feeling, as we're going through this kind of apocalypse, which is an unveiling of the truths. It's not easy, but it has to come to light so we can transmute it and free it and get out of these karmic patterns, just like you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And even and I'm not going to go into the whole detail of the COVID thing because that can be such a tricky subject. But
Absolutely.
I will just say that, the best thing you can do, especially for your lungs, whether it be during COVID or not, is to practice conscious breathing. Because you want to build your lungs, you want to keep them strong. Your lungs is where your chi energy is, it's your prana, it's your life force. And so, even for me, as I continue my healing journey, I really have to focus on conscious breathing. That's how I'm rebuilding my lungs, and it's working, and because it's your life force. So everything that we breathe in is essentially God, if you will, and everything we breathe out is that which no longer serves us anymore, if you will. So conscious breathing, especially during this time, even with COVID, is so important for people because it can help to purify your body and your spirit.
Absolutely. I think that's great. And I'm really glad you brought light to it. And, and that's all we can do, no matter where all these things are coming from or what's happening or the truth of it. All we can do is discover the truth of ourselves and heal ourselves as best as we can, accept where we are today, but then also love and nurture ourselves and help ourselves to become, a better and healed version of ourselves. And just like Ellen said, it doesn't happen overnight, but showing up with consistency and practice and unconditional love for yourself is what's going to break that. And every cell in the body, it's about 7 years before they all completely rebuild, but you can be a whole new person in 7 years if you let yourself. I love to follow Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, and I'm always joking around on the podcast and with my clients, like I just keep Joe Dispenzaing my shit up, and envisioning it all healing and coming together and being in, perfect health and harmony with myself and my higher self and spirit. So I'm really glad you brought all that up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting because I did a video in one of my groups about that yesterday, and I was amazed to see how many clients came to me for guidance on that, just on the smoking issue alone. Because I think on a deep soul level, we know that what we're doing isn't the best for us, and we know that, and also that you're not a free spirit when you're doing that. You're not free. Your spirit isn't free. And the whole path of ascension is about freeing your spirit. And you can't be a free soul when you're chained to something that every hour you need to run over there and have in order to feel good. It's got your soul chained. And nobody wants to hear that while you're smoking because unfortunately you're still very addicted to the drugs themselves. But you just have to learn to understand that the physical dependency of the chemical itself is kind of it's got you under control. And the moment that you're able to get free from that, then the rest is kind of easy. But I will also say that and I don't know what your audience is comfortable with, or what, like how far you go into the deep esoteric stuff.
You're comfortable with all of it. You go, girl. Speak your truth.
Okay, well then I'm gonna freak a few people out here because
That's okay.
one thing that was revealed to me when I was going through the journey of quitting, and I was going through the flatlining, and I was having these light beings fighting for me and helping me, I was also shown a draconian being, about 18-foot large, giant being. They're very real, and they've been not all of them are bad, but a lot of them don't care for humanity much, and they have created all kinds of the matrix structures to feed on and loose form the energy of souls, human souls. And I was shown that that's what was hooking me. It was a giant draconian being that had been trying to feed on my energy and hold me hostage. And I literally had to fight him. And I had a dream first that he was trying to rape me or something, and he was trying to hold on to my spirit. And I was so afraid of him because he was so enormous that I tried to play dead, and then I passed out because I was completely terrified
Mm.
by this being. It was you know, I had to go through this journey for me to become conscious of what was going on a deeper level, on a deeper esoteric level, the stuff that we don't see in the physical human world. There's another layer going on in the fourth dimension. And if you don't understand what it is, it's kind of hard to break free from it. So they were showing me that that's what was going on. So I understood that there was this other entity that was also, I chose to smoke. So it was my fault. I opened myself to this. But there are other entities there that can possess and feed on the human soul itself too, and they do in through many other forms as well. But they smell like sewer and death, and they
Oh,
burn like
interesting.
acid. It's a really quite a horrendous experience, really. And again, I go into deep esoteric states, and I have deep knowledge and deep experience, and I don't expect that everybody that quits gonna have this experience, and hopefully they don't. You know what I mean? But for me, that was my experience, and it was I was being shown these beings. And I think that that's part of what a lot of us are going through in ascension, that as we start to go through ascension consciously, we are being prepared to see these type of entities so that we really understand the issues that we're facing on a soul level, you know.
Absolutely. You're the first person who's reported to me smelling them. I've been fortunate enough to talk with a lot of really incredible psychics and visionaries, but particularly I've noticed that, a lot of these draconians and reptilians and different other maybe darker, not like you said, not all of them are bad, but some of them are, just like humans. And
Mhm.
they tend to really feed off of people with psychic ability. And you,
Yeah.
experienced that in many, many lifetimes, not only this. So I'm just, grateful you're sharing that experience with us. And I think it's really neat that you were able to share with us that you can sense them in other ways too, because I've heard of lots of visions of them and lots of psychic attack and stuff, but I haven't heard about someone being able to smell them yet. And that energy just agrees. Like when you explained it, I'm like, well, that's from what I look at and see and what they show me. I would think they would smell that way.
Oh no, it's the foulest thing you'll ever experience. It's one of the most foulest stenches. It's like lifetimes of rotting carcasses, lifetimes of them. That's how bad they smell. It's the most foulest thing you're ever gonna experience, really. And I think that for whatever reason I was brought through this. I pray not everybody will have to go through so much hardship, because it was a tremendous journey for me. And like I was saying, I understood. I went through some of the darkest stage of my ascension through this. It really was the hardest time of my life. And you think when you're having an awakening that you're out of the woods and you're gonna be, like you got the code to happiness now, and you cracked the code and all these things. But quite honestly, it's really not like that. You might have your bubble love stage like that, and of course we want to focus on positives and all those things too. But the truth is that as you go through deeper layers of awakening, you are being trained to battle some really intense energies from both angles, light and dark. So you really get shown how to be stronger and stronger, because we're not here for just rainbows and butterflies.
Nope.
We're battling a lot of darkness, and you're not going to be able to be a true servant of the light if you're afraid of facing the dark. And that's,
Absolutely.
I see a lot of that in the spiritual community. They get afraid to even talk about pedophilia, that, they're so afraid to look at it, heaven forbid. But if we don't look at it, we can't heal it.
That's how I feel. I'm like, can't we just shine a little light so we can reveal the truth and then transmute it? Because if we keep it all in the dark, it's just going to play the same fearful energies that it's been playing out this whole time and keep us bound.
Keeping it in the dark is what's been fueling it and powering it. You want to keep ignoring it? Come on. You can't do that. It's not going to heal. You have to bring it to the light, and you have to look at it, and you have to face it. And that's what I was shown with this draconian being. In order for me to quit smoking, I think the spirit guides also knew how addicted I really was and how deeply chained I was by it, that they knew what to show me in order to give me the strength to fight through it. But and also during that stage, I had to go through another separation in the etheric with my twin, even though in the beginning I could feel him and everything. But afterwards, I went through a couple of years of really not feeling him, and I was shown that I had to get on the cross together with him in order to feel him again, meaning that I really had to go through the sacrifice of letting all that go.
Mm.
And I also went through what I call my Garden of Gethsemane experience during that time. Like I said, it's been 4 years now, so it was a lot of darkness that I had to go through, and I was transmuting the suffering for many, many, many souls that had passed over, that were chained, and I was feeling the pain and suffering of it, and I received a message understanding that it was kind of like my Garden of Gethsemane experience, where I felt the suffering of all of those souls. I felt it personally in every ounce of my being. It was quite horrendous.
I believe it, and the more I look at a lot of this, especially the sex trafficking and pedophilia, it's been going on since the beginning of humanity. And many of us souls have been caught in that karmic loop. And some of us have experienced it in this lifetime. Some of us have experienced it in this lifetime and many other lifetimes. And some, can't quite get out of it quite yet. But I feel like every time someone like you had just explained did all that work, you're really helping to lift the rest of that collective karma. And
we
that's serious work, sister, and I am grateful for you.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny. I actually, on my main Facebook page, I also did a video on that yesterday on the topic of the pedophilia, because I've been getting downloads on that for 2 weeks, and I got a very, very, very clear message yesterday that the spirit gave me, the source, because I work directly with source, and I got a very clear message that we will not resolve any of the other issues that you hear everybody fighting about: money, politics, race, whatever the issues are. None of it is going to heal if we do not correct the pedophilia first.
That rings so true.
It is the core of all of our problems. It is the most important thing. Our children are our future. And if we don't put them first, we don't have a future. And we've been ignoring them and trying to fight and squabble over all these other little petty things. I call them petty because even politics, it's petty compared to millions of children getting raped and molested and sacrificed and murdered and heads cut off and blood drinking and organs harvested. It's nonsense that we even. I'm to a point, especially after the message I got from Spirit, that I don't really want to hear anything from anybody anymore unless they're talking about how to fix that. That was a very clear message, and so I did a video on it, because it's like, if you really think about all of the stuff that's going on in politics and everything else, it's being driven by the same people that are raping children. And until we address that, I don't want to hear a word from anybody anymore, because I don't believe anything from them.
Yep. I feel you, and it's there's the cognitive dissonance factor. And like right now, so many of us kind of empaths, light warriors, way showers, whatever we like to define ourselves are, we were fortunate enough to experience or see the truth of this for a long time. I know myself and many other healers have just heard so many stories that are so chillingly similar that it's insane. Like, you cannot deny this energy, and there's a reason every single woman and mother in America still feels in her intuition that it is not safe out there, because it's not. And all of the laws have been written around it to protect these these pedophilia rings. And I feel the same way. And I'm like, people, I've lost a few friends. People are like, well, if you're not just staying in the positivity, then I don't want to, be in your energy anymore. And I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah.
I said, my spirit will not let me not
No.
talk about this. I was like, and I will still teach everybody to, heal within themselves. I do think that this revolution begins with inner evolution, but
Of
that
course.
evolution includes awareness.
Well, it's funny that you said exactly that, because I think I was on one of your shows with Jenny and Bo, and I remember talking briefly, touching on the subject that I had been in the MK Ultra program as a young child,
Mm.
and that I had gone through child molestation and child rape with many, many different perpetrators as a young kid. I didn't have a mom at home, so I was exposed to a lot of things. And I had to heal that within my own self first, which took me decades, obviously. I mean, from the time I was 14 years old, I took myself to a therapist's office, and I spent the next 15 years in a psychiatrist's office trying to heal what was wrong with me.
Mm.
It took me that long to kind of start to realize, well, wait a second, maybe it's not me that's the monster here,
Right. But it's hard when you're taught that. We're all taught that too via religion and society. And you went through, something incredibly extreme and direct. But even the subtle ways, that is the hardest thing to break free over.
Well, and so even after all of that therapy, I still had to do another 15 years of spiritual work in order to really heal it in myself and break free from the sex slave programming that was part of the matrix program that my soul was trapped within. So I had to break through all of that. And of course, where I'm at now, I am free from it, and I can see when somebody else has those demonic attachments or sex slave demons. I went through exorcisms. I went through heavy duty stuff here. Spiritual work isn't 100% light and love. You cannot go into it with that perspective. And I know that a lot of that's kind of being fueled from The Secret and all that, because there's a lot of truth in there. All of that stuff is true, but it's not really showing you the dark side of things. And you have to see some of the dark side of things in order to really heal. You have to be able to see both.
You do.
You're made yin and yang. You got to be able to see both in order to understand the whole big picture. And I'm not saying sit there and dwell in it and focus on it or whatever, but if you're feeling bad, you have to go inside of yourself and figure out why you're feeling bad. And you're not going to like it, because when you get in there, you're going to find your own demons, and you have to face them.
You have to, and that's where the real beauty is. And that's what I tell, my clients and myself. I'm like, all the magic is within your own mind and your own heart and your belief systems about yourself first and foremost. When you're, talking shit to yourself all day and bringing in, all of these energies that aren't serving you anymore, it's going to keep you down, and it's really about, I like the word program, because it's about reprogramming what you're thought to think about yourself in the first place, and then all of the energies and everything outside of you. And it is not easy work. And that's where I always say the work and the magic is within your own consciousness and heart and belief system.
And I think I agree with that. It is. And I think the most important thing that anybody can take away from this conversation, we kind of went on a few different topics, but as far as overall healing for any issue, whether it be smoking or, pedophilia or collective problems, because pedophilia is a collective problem for all of us. And of course, you have to heal within yourself, because you may not have experienced being a child victim in this lifetime, but most likely somewhere in one of your lifetimes you have been, because it has been happening since the beginning of humanity, and it is a core wound for us. And it's a core wound, much like racism is for us. It's been created to cause division within us and to cause soul splitting. And so, of course, the children are the easiest targets for the darkness to go after, and they don't give a rip about the children. So they rape them and traumatize them and harm the soul and damage the soul. And then it's this perpetual cycle that's going on and on. If you're going to ever heal something, you really have to be willing to go in there and figure out what is causing the sore. It's never going to change if we don't. And when I made that video yesterday, it was really interesting, because probably 500 or more people have seen it, and only 60 people gave it a like, which I find to be tragic.
I know. I'm at
if, if I
videos from yesterday. When I get some time, I'm going to, but People are afraid sometimes, I think, too, man. Ugh.
This is why I feel like I need to say this. You know, if I post something, I posted one the other day that was Miss Piggy talking about how her, you know, she was still mad at the boyfriend, but her vagina wasn't, you know, like, you know, a sexual post. And oh man, hundreds of people are going to like that right away, right? Like they all like it. It's funny.
Yeah.
They like it. They want to. But when it comes to something that's real, that's very important, and that's very hard to look at, nobody wants to look at it. And it's never going to go away if we don't. It's never going to get healed if we don't face it. And especially pedophilia on a collective level. I don't know how we ended up on this conversation, but we're here, so I'm just going to go with
We're
it.
going. Spirit is leading, sister. It's what needs to be said and heard.
It's been on the forefront of my mind, and the spirit's been bringing it to the forefront. But basically, that issue itself is the one issue that everybody wants to try to ignore, and it's the most important issue that we can address on a collective level and individually. So of course you want to heal yourself individually and go through that process of just recognizing that, you know, was I ever a pedophile in any lifetime? Because most likely you were a pedophile at one point in time, and most likely you were also raped and molested, because it's a cyclical thing, right? It's like men and women hating each other. Well, one lifetime you were probably a male raping women, another lifetime you were a woman being a, you know, prostitute or whatever it is. Your soul's here to have all these expansive experiences, but also we get caught in these karmic cycles. And so maybe, you know, heal that within yourself. But even if you weren't ever a pedophile or you weren't ever molested or whatever, on a collective level, the issue itself affects all of humanity and all of the cosmos. It's completely affecting the entire cosmos.
Absolutely.
And in order for us to heal from it, we have to be honest about it. And we have to start demanding answers. Why is everybody so afraid of a couple of wealthy politicians or a couple of wealthy elitists or Hollywood, you know, movie stars? Why are people so afraid of that? Where is the courage?
It's, you know what I think it is? I think it's the money system. They've got us so enslaved with this money, and everybody's so worried about it, you know, that they're afraid they're not going to have security of some sort. Like I constantly see it coming back to that, or like, oh, well, if I speak my truth about this, I might lose my job and I can't be honest about it, whether it's just on Facebook or with your friends or this or that. And like, I don't know. Do you see a big connection with the mind brain, you know,
I totally
washing and this money thing too?
I totally do, and it's good that you brought that up, because for me, you know, and I think for all of us that are going through ascension, one of the layers of ascension and levels of healing and growth that we do go through is to become self-sufficient financially and self-made financially, so that you're free of that matrix system, so that you can, of course, do the work that you're doing. I think JP Sears is a great example of that, because he's
Oh, he's
very
awesome.
self-made, you know, and he still does his spiritual work, and he's able to turn it into a way to make a living, and not be caught in that system to where, you know, he's not controlled by the masses. And it's good that you brought that up also, because I still hold a real estate license and still do real estate sales on the side, and that is a system that holds me hostage to some degree, in the sense that, and I don't let it, because I don't care anymore. I don't care what anybody says anymore. I serve God and God only, and that's it. The
Hmm.
end. I don't care what anybody else says, because I know that I'm protected by Source in all things, and whatever I need comes to me. But holding that real estate license still keeps me to some degree, where if I say certain things and somebody wants to make an issue of it, they can try to prevent me from getting sales. I'm still self-employed, but you know, I still have a license, and I have to uphold a certain, you know, level of human 3D kind of, you know, behavior. And that behavior sometimes, and those standards sometimes, are contrary to what is spiritual truth. And so the soul itself has to be willing to stand only for spiritual truth, and not be concerned about what the consequences are, as long, you know, I mean, use your discernment there. But yeah, the money system is a form of controlling the soul, and the soul, and then too, that's the individual soul's responsibility to be honest with themselves about what they're doing there, because you will lose a piece of your spirit if you sell yourself for monies as opposed to doing what you know in your soul is the right thing to do. And so it's a very delicate balance. And unfortunately, many of us have lost our soul along the way over money, whether we meant to or not, right?
Absolutely. And we're taught it's going to, if you gain your financial freedom, that, that's what you feel like you're free once you get enough money. Well, if I have enough money, then, but there's never enough. And it always turns into something often, and until you pair it with that spirituality of like, all of my needs are met in every possible way. And you realize money's only one form of all of this beautiful energy. But we've been so taught to be so controlled and so desensitized. That's another thing. A lot of like the empaths I work with are like, oh my God, I thought I was getting control over my feelings. And I'm realizing that with a lot of the ascension and awareness happening right now, I think our hearts are supposed to crack open and we're supposed to desensitize a little again because we're highly sensitive beings. And that's part of how we can ascend spiritually and download all of this information and heal ourselves. But when we desensitize ourselves to everything and we lose our heart and stuff, then we can't be in tune with that. And I'm noticing through a lot of this current great awakening and ascension, people are becoming more sensitive again. And I'm finding that a beautiful and powerful thing and not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think it's a natural human response to want to cover your heart and protect it from feeling the pain. But if you do that, you also close yourself from love. And so the key is to try to, hold your heart open and allow everything to pass through you with love, the proper way, love, know how to transmute it as it's passing through.
Absolutely. Well, Ellen, it has been such an honor jamming with you always. We have about 7 minutes left, and I was wondering if you could just give our listeners a little overview of the divine union work you do and what that looks like and what maybe they can look forward to out there. Or, I don't know, I'll let you just talk about whatever you want to with that. I could
Okay.
ask a million questions.
Yeah, I know that subject is a really intricate subject. Well, I do assist people who are on the journey, and even if you haven't been activated yet or you don't know who your twin flame is, I assist you in balancing your chakras, in activating light codes that are necessary for your Merkaba to be balanced in order for you to come into union with your twin, whether you know who they are or not. So there are certain levels of evolution that your soul needs to go through, and there's light codes that need to be activated. You're gonna have to embody the 12 sacraments. They're actually 13, but I call them the 12. There's a couple in there that you share with the masculine and feminine counterpart. But anyways, you're gonna learn how to embody those sacraments, and so I teach that, and I also help to clear energy blocks and those types of things that definitely get in the way of union. All of it's related to ascension. So anything spiritual or anything ascension or whatever, it's all connected to that twin flame union at the end of the day. And the reason why is because the twin souls that split apart, them coming together is really the ultimate in your face to the dark side, because
Okay.
originally it's absolutely an in your face to the dark side, because originally, and one of the reasons why they even go after the little children is to split the soul, and the soul gets split and you lose your one true love, you lose your self empowerment, you lose your God self. It's all connected at the end of the day, even to twin flame unions. So the more that you guys are all doing your soul work and you're all trying to go through ascension and learning all these things, at the you want to come into union with yourself, your soul, and all of these light codes get activated within you. And that twin flame ascension is part of you coming back into wholeness with your own soul, which is what the dark side has been trying to prevent from the beginning of time. So twin flame journey itself, or the twin flames, the 144,000, and that, which we're all working towards, right? That is part of your soul coming back into wholeness, which is your true nature. Your true nature is that you're made with this mate. So anybody that's on that journey, I can help you through it. It's quite it's quite a treacherous journey, actually. I
Yeah.
I guess everything spiritual is, but it's a very treacherous journey, and I was one of the first waivers, if you will. You've heard of the waivers, right?
I have, and I've been hearing more and more about them lately, and especially second wave. I'm seeing just on Facebook and people talking about the second wave's coming. So I'm not sure if that's the
Yeah.
same wave you're talking about or a different one, but I've been hearing a lot
Second,
about it lately.
yeah, the first waivers kind of had their awakenings in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, kind of that
Okay.
area. And the second waivers have been having awakenings recently, like 2018, I think, is when they started to have a wave of them again. But anyhow, the first waivers were, if you think about it, 10 years ago or in 2007, there was no information on twin flames, right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
There's
Not
no
that I can remember. But I wasn't fully looking back then either. I'd say more towards 2012 I was, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, around 2007, 2008, I had my first third eye opening, and I thought I was a complete crazy person. I thought I went nuts. And then in 2011, I had a Kundalini full blown awakening, twin flame, everything, and I went looking for answers, and there was really very little. And so the first waivers are kind of like that first group of awakenings that realized the twin flame understanding and had that level of evolution and started to carve or pioneer the path. Now the second waivers are coming in, and there's tons of information for them. They still have to disseminate truth from lies because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and a lot of people that are in different states of consciousness that are trying to mimic the information. But the first waivers kind of carved the path, and then the second waivers are starting to come through, and they're offering different kind of energetic gifts to the whole collective. But
Mm.
it's all part of the Great Awakening, and it's all part of the 144,000, and so the coming together with the twin soul is very, very sacred and important for the Great Awakening right now, because like I said, the original attack on humanity and attack on the soul itself is to split it apart from its own counterpart, which would be the male and the female, and breaking love, right? Breaking love. Love
Mm.
is the essence of everything that we are, and it's been broken, especially when they target the young children. They don't even know how to correct it at that time. So coming back together and coming into union and healing all those things is like all of a sudden you're with your God mate and you're in your God power, and it's quite amazing.
Oh, it's just so beautiful. Ellen, how can our listeners get a hold of you if they want to follow you or work with you one on one?
The best way to get a hold of me is right now on Facebook or on YouTube. You can find me on YouTube, Ellen Red, REDD. I'm on Facebook also. I have a couple different pages there, and I also have a group called Twin Flame Initiates. It's best to find my Ellen Red page, the Ascension Guidance page. But either way, you can find me anywhere on Facebook, YouTube. I don't use Twitter a lot, but I'm on there. I have an Instagram page, which I'm kind of new at. But Facebook and YouTube are my two main ones that I'm mostly on.
Perfect. That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming and holding space with us again. Your wisdom and your light is just so beautiful. And we need you. And we need, everyone else who's here to help shine a light on
Yeah.
all of this. And I'm grateful that you're spreading truth, and for all of our listeners out there, like it is important to stay sovereign and to not get consumed in the negative. However, it's important to pay a little attention to it. Something I like to do is when I find it being like a little overwhelming, is I'll light a candle and I'll say, angels, please help everyone that you can for their highest good and help take this burden off me so I can concentrate on my own sovereignty at this time. And then I'll go and I'll practice one of my medicines, whether it be breathing or taking a walk or doing a meditation or some dance. I love to dance, especially if I'm pissed off. I like to dance it out. It's really important. These energies that are coming through you are so sacred and so beautiful and so divine. And there is purpose to every single one of them. And if you allow yourself to sit with it and not fall into the coping or numbing mechanisms, which every single one of us light warriors and workers absolutely have at least one, if not more.
Right.
And it's part of
Yeah,
our mission.
yeah, for sure. And it's funny too, because even in your ascension journey, you may even pick up an addiction along the way while you're going through ascension, because ascension's so difficult. But as you continue your spiritual work, you'll also be led back out of it. So just continue the spiritual work. And then as far as you were saying, in relation to you know, balancing the light and the dark and lighting candles and all that, definitely first and foremost do some protection spells around your soul and your auric field and everything else
Mhm.
to protect you, so that when you're facing these things, if you do protection spells every day, then even when you face the things that are kind of heavier, you're already protected by the spirit. And you also, you know, remember that at the end of the day, the source, the divine source, is in control of all things, and that love wins. So keep that in the forefront of your mind as you're facing things. You know, it makes it a little easier to cope with when you remember your truth, which is that love, it does win. So you don't have to carry all the burden of it. You just have to figure out how to transmute it and release it to the divine
Mm.
or to the cosmos.
Those are beautiful, beautiful words to end on. Thank you so much, Ellen, for coming on. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to this special discussion. And we are wishing you all of the love, light, strength, and clarity that is going to be needed for the next steps of these ascensions.
Absolutely. We'll have a blessed day, week, month, year, life journey.
Beautiful.